Okay, perfect. Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks to the Stargaze team also for having us. I am Rafa, Rafael. I go by Rafa. I'm one of the co-founders of Numia, and Numia essentially is a company started by a few folks in the Cosmos ecosystem, out of frustration more than anything, because we're a group of people who are like doing a bunch of stuff in Cosmos, and we're frustrated that we couldn't get our hands into proper insights, data analytics, understanding user behavior. So we realized we could, maybe support the whole ecosystem by building this product, this company, which at the end of the day, what we do is like we index data, and we provide tools for the communities to access that data and understand better the whole ecosystem, right? That's kind of like our mission. And in today's workshop, we're going to be going through. I'm gonna take 5 minutes to present exactly what we do, maybe at most, probably less than that. And then we're gonna go into a few examples on how you can query the data, how you can build some dashboards, and how you can also build some interactive dashboards by the way, and some, for expectation management. We're gonna do some SQL today. Somebody was asking at the beginning, but if you don't know SQL, that's okay. I think this is maybe just a start, and opening up the door for those people who can SQL to collaborate with the whole community, build dashboards in collaboration. And we ourselves are gonna open source a bunch of queries that you can use to build your own dashboards. So again, no big deal, but I think it's important that people understand how to use Numia, how to access it for those who can right off the bat. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And this is, and also, by the way, feel free to write down your questions in the chat in the meantime, or I think that works normally better rather than interrupting it, because we're a lot of folks. So feel free to write them, and I'm going to answer them periodically every few minutes. Okay, so this is basically what I want to go through today. Again, we're going to take maybe 10 minutes to talk about the theory, let's say, and then we're going to go into the interactive stuff. Our mission is really improve the access to the data for the Cosmos ecosystem to drive more sustainable economic activity. Some of us come from Web 2.0 and have an analytics background, and we feel like the Cosmos ecosystem is lacking that a little bit. We're talking to basically almost all of the chains right now, and all of them have, most of them at least have difficulties in answering core business questions like, hey, what's my user retention? How do I know which users are coming back? Like, how do I know which users am I losing? Why am I losing them, right? And at the end of the day, answering those business questions, I think will allow the whole ecosystem to, to have better products overall, right? Higher TVL, more liquidity, more adoption, and better UX overall, I think. We're approaching Numia, kind of like targeting this 4 different segments. First of all, building a very general platform, but as we develop more and more, we're super interested in hearing your feedback as a community from Stargaze, as it like what can we build, how we can improve the service. But overall, we think of our service to serve the different needs of these 4 groups that we see here, for example. So the way we've set up the product right now, and this, this isn't something. The current setup allows us to launch quickly, but it's something that's going to be keep adapting. I can quickly mention a little bit about our product roadmap. But the way where Numia works right now is like we basically run nodes, and though we have written some code that essentially what it does is it streams the blocks out of the blocks into a pipeline in GCP, and that pipeline essentially cleans the data, parses the data, and puts it into BigQuery. BigQuery is the SQL engine that Google has for accessing and running queries. And what we've done, all of our data sets are hosted by us, they're cleaned by us, parsed by us, but they're public data sets. So anybody with any GCP account can query them. So right now you will need a GCP account, but what you can do and what we recommend right now is just create a GCP account. Google gives you $300 in credits, and that's way more than enough to run a lot of reports, a lot of dashboards, a lot of queries with the data sets that we're providing for the Stargaze community. I'm going to show you how to access those data sets from your GCP account. In our docs, you can follow the steps to create your GCP account. It's really easy. It's like creating a Gmail account, really. It's nothing fancy. It's super straightforward. And then the good thing about BigQuery and why we launched it here first was that it connects really well with the G Suite. Like you can connect directly to Google Sheet, for example, or to Google Data Studio, which now Google, I think, calls Looker's Data Studio or something like that. But I am going to share how to connect to those in this interactive webinar, how you can build your super nice dashboards, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, perfect. And then maybe a few of the benefits that we think our current setup has. Right now, we're doing all the work on indexing the data, parsing it, and putting it in a place where it's clean so that people can access it for free. We have the ability, so we're syncing real-time blocks right now for all of our chains. I'm gonna put myself on the spot. We're still in beta. Remember this, for disclaimer. And the system is fairly robust. I'm gonna put myself on the spot and see when the last block from Stargaze came in. It should be instantly, almost at least. And something really nice about Numia. So our goal is to have all of the chains from Cosmos indexed by Q1 next year. So the great thing about that is that you're gonna be able to run cross-chain queries. We're also gonna do one of those examples, which is really nice. So I can actually, if you're running an IBC query, and maybe you want to explore what people do from an airdrop on one chain and how they move the token to Osmosis, sell them, and they go buy maybe Stargaze NFTs. That's something potentially you could do with these cross-chain queries. And then the G Suite capability, I think it's potent and really powerful, I think. But again, we're not close to we're going to open to other types of database in the near future. And we're also building an API. So if you are somebody building a front-end app, or you want to build a front-end app with these types of dashboards, we'll open up APIs as well for that. But yeah, and that's again a few examples before I go on. This is one of our customers that connected their Google Sheets to our database. What they're running is they're running a query on arbitraging on Osmosis, for example. We have another customer that's building delegations over time. This is something anybody on Stargaze can build actually very easily. Delegations over time, filter them by delegator. And here's kind of how the interface of BigQuery looks like right now, and the specific part of the platform that we're going to be focused on right now. So yeah, that's again the intro. I hope I was brief enough. I think maybe I can stop for a second. If anybody has any questions on the higher level stuff, I can address them right now. If not, we can move on to the interactive stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna move on then. Okay, perfect. So again, in our docs, we have the steps with which you can create your GCP account. Again, it's super easy. It's like creating an email account. And then you'll have the credits so you can start running queries here. But here you can see there's a bunch of data sets that I have here on my pinned on my BigQuery instance. This is essentially, these are, some of them are internal, but you can see the public ones that you'll be able to access: Cache, Cosmos Hub, Evmos, Osmosis, Stargaze, and Stride. Those are the ones that are completely publicly accessible. And the one we're going to be focusing on, obviously, is Stride. So in order to pin it, since this is public, once you log into your BigQuery instance and you go here, you're not going to see anything here. So what you need to do is basically click these three dots here and click on Add Data. And select here this option, Star a Project by Name. So once you get this, essentially what you need to do is, here is the Stargaze dataset name. You need to input this here, but actually before that, you need to input this. So BigQuery has essentially this sort of like domain, like addresses, this is ours. So in order to tell Google that you're searching for specific database, which is ours, you have to put this first, and then the name of the data set that I just showed you, which is Stargaze 1. You click on star, and you will see it here on the left. I already have it, so it didn't get out, obviously, but okay, so it will show here, and now you can essentially start exploring the data set, right? So right now we have a very, let's say, our default listing for all the chains that we do and the free access that we give is we do this default listing essentially, where you'll see blocks, event attributes, message event attributes, and transactions. This is essentially 95, probably a little bit more of the data that you'll need to build your stuff. We're expanding and creating more tables for all of our data sets so that it's easier to query. But in theory, you can already start doing, and I'm going to show you in this session how you can start right now to extract the proper value out of the data set, right? So something, this is going to be very raw as well, because so you guys understand how it's easy to do this. But my best friend in order to kind of like run the queries is basically MinScan, because in MinScan you get basically this explorer where you can see the transactions, right, that are running. For example, a simple send, this one seems to have failed, but maybe I'm just going to go to the example. Like here I have essentially a transaction that basically is a bid, a contract set bid type. So the way we index the data, and this is kind of like the important part, is we work with this events-based logic that Cosmos SDK has. So all of the data that you see here within MinScan in the events is essentially what you'll see in Numia one-to-one, on top of a bunch of other stuff. But this is where you'll be able to extract most of the metadata to run your dashboards, et cetera, et cetera. Stargaze has is a WASM chain essentially, right? So there is a bunch of stuff in this very customized event that the team has tagged, has implemented, so that we can access that data. For example, in this contracted bid message, we can see there's an event. Maybe a little bit more about the data model. The way the Cosmos SDK works is basically events get triggered when a state change happens on the chains, and the chains specifically have to tell the SDK what metadata to send on that specific state change, right? Which triggers an event. And in this case, for example, I want to go to the WASM finalized sale, because okay, here's where I would essentially know. Okay, so there's a contract address. This collection essentially was sold this for this NFT. I think I'm not an expert on Stargaze yet, becoming one, by the way. Any misconceptions that I say here, please forgive me. But here, for example, we have the price on that sale, and this is exactly, let's say we want to run a query where we extract the sales of this collection over time, right? This is where I can see, oh, so I need the event type WASM finalized sale, the attribute key price, and I want to grab that value. So again, MinScan will help you a lot to understand the data model, because once you come to BigQuery, and here's where I want to explore the data set with you, we're going to go to this table called message event attributes, which maps one-to-one to everything that you see here on MinScan, essentially, right? So message event attributes, essentially, we'll give it a preview. And here you can see essentially the same hierarchy that you saw in MinScan. There are events. These events have attributes, and these attributes have values, essentially. So what we're going to do right now is going to say, okay, let's grab this transaction ID, and let's explore this specific transaction, so that you guys can essentially a second. So I made this. Okay, so we have the transaction ID. So if you, sorry, I closed the table. I should have done that. So we're going to open it up again so that you guys can follow up. But okay, so we have a column that's transaction ID, and this is what we want to grab. We're gonna do a select all for now. From the Stargaze message attributes events. By the way, maybe just a quick clarification. The difference between event attributes and message event attributes is that message event attributes contain only events from messages. So that means transactions that users have signed. But event attributes also contained a bunch of events from blocks that are not necessarily from signed transactions. So most of the stuff will be here, but something like block rewards and other stuff that's very specific to Cosmos will be here on event attributes. But most of the stuff, or specifically the WASM interactions that Stargaze has, will be here on message event attributes. It's actually on both, but you want to grab it from here. So we're going to do this, and we're going to say where transaction ID equals this one that I have here. Okay, so right now, basically, I should receive pretty much the same data that I saw on MintScan. So you can see the block height, the transaction ID is the one that we just had. The message index, essentially, you can have in one transaction in Cosmos. Remember, you can have more than one message. That's normally done, rarely happens, but can be the case. So that will tell you which message it is. The event index, so the number of events in sequence. And here we go back to essentially what we were seeing before. Here you can see event type WASM finalized sale of the token ID 1404. And this is exactly the data that we're looking right here, essentially, right? And this is, again, kind of like the theory part, but the most important one in the sense that, right now, in order to consume and build stuff, you need to understand the model of Cosmos. But again, I think there's a lot of potential here, like work as a community and maybe have the people who can do SQL like share stuff with us. We will support also the ecosystem with queries and templates so that you can just grab it, run it, take the data, and build up your nice dashboard, for example. So again, this is the 101 intro to the data model in Cosmos, but it's also the intro on how to query the data, right? So right now we have the data. That's perfect. So, okay, let's say right now we want to run a query that allows us to calculate the sales of a specific collection. Okay, so I'm going to take bad kits, right? And I'm going to comment it out here right now. Okay, so again, I'm going to walk you through the process so that you also understand how to do this. But okay, so what do we want? So we have a transaction ID that indicates us the data that we need, right? So this WASM finalized sale seems to have all the data that we need. It has the collection address, so it's here, and it has the price, actually. Perfect. So let's see that. Let's say we want to do that over time. Like we want to have a nice chart that looks like at the daily sales of this specific collection. Okay, nice. So that means that in our data model, right now the block height is essentially our time dimension. We're going to do a join to grab the block timestamp from the blocks table and have it at really nice chart in terms of like sales over time. Okay, so how do we do that? Cool. So right now, I know that I need this specific event, right? So we're going to remove this in this transaction anymore. I'm going to say, hey, Numia, give me the attributes of the finalized sale. And specifically what I want is where the attribute key, right? Collection, I think it was called, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, with the attribute key collection. So we're gonna go another condition, attribute key equals collection. And attribute value. So here's where we're telling it, hey, I want a specific collection, right? Equals, no, this is wrong. The bad kits collection. Okay. So, and actually this column is called attribute value, right? Okay, so let's do just limit 10 for now, just to make sure we're getting the data right for now, right? And let's see what happens. Okay, so it seems definitely we're getting some data. looks like, yeah, a finalized sale from the collection. Yes, it's the same. It's a Bad Kids collection. Okay, nice. So right now, what I'm not getting here is the price, right? The price essentially is within the same event type. So what we need to do here is essentially a self-join, which is a very standard thing in SQL. But for those of you who don't know, what we did is essentially just making sure that we can grab another attribute from the same event. So we're going to do a join here on transaction ID. A self-join, again, we're just joining the same table just to grab this as the same attribute from the same event ID. And also something that we need to do, this is because we're going to join on the event index. Why? Because there is a chance if a bot or something, for example, does more than one of these messages on the same transaction, we need to make sure that we're joining with the right one. And again, we're going to share a bunch of these queries, by the way, with everyone. You don't have to write them down or anything. And I see that there are 2 questions, so let me finish this right now and then go to that. So we have event index and okay, so I'm missing a keyword here. Okay, so from the second table, now that I have the same table being joined, I need to tell my query which attributes from which table should be grabbed. And now basically from the second table that I'm joining, which is again the same, what I want is and I think it was called price, the key value price. Yes, correct. This is what I want. I'm actually also going to tell it, this should be completely fine, I think. Yeah. It's because of this, it already knows that from the second table, it also should grab the same event type. So cool. So now let's just do a select all again, just to make sure that we get price to, although this might not, it might not return any, but let's see. And right after just checking this data, I'm going to go to the question very briefly. Yeah, I limited to 10, but I'm almost sure the data should be there, the price. We can do a check. Let's grab. Oh, right here, sorry. I'm joining, so it's right here. So yeah, we're getting it. We're getting it for every sale, essentially, we're getting the price of that same sale. And now we can just grab that price and add it up, right? So what we're going to do is what we want is the attribute value of this one, of the second table, which is, we know it's the price, right? So the second one. And again, we know that this is, again, a little bit for some of the people who are a bit more expert on SQL, but again, I think there's a potential for communities, the community working together here. And also we're working on with the change to also expand all of these schemas. And in the, we're talking about the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to have more tables as like NFT sales. It's just one table. It's easier for you to query, but I think this can get you started right now. And it's also a really good learning on how you can build very complex stuff if you're into it too. Okay, so as you see, and this is something that's kind of weird from Cosmos, but Cosmos stores on the attribute value a bunch of different stuff, including sometimes something that's numbers and sometimes something that's words, right? So we need to just make sure that this is cast. This is the way you do it with BigQuery. So now, okay, it's not complaining. So right now, what this query will return is essentially the total sales of this collection until today. In the lower denomination, I think, of the token. And I think Stargaze has 6 decimals. So we still need to divide that up by 1 million if we wanted to get the specific sale count in sales. So yeah, let's do that. What is it, like a million? So yeah, so basically based on this, and by the way, there's a chance we're still indexing part of November for Stargaze. There's still that some days are missing, but that should be done by tomorrow. But all of the historical data is available since Genesis. But right now, this would tell me essentially that so far, Bad Kids has had a total of 16,400,000 approximately in sales, essentially. I think this is a stars value, right? So right now, okay, so I'm gonna go to look, you know what, apologies, but let me finish because I'm almost done with the date. Actually, since we're, it's already half, I already had written this query, so I'm gonna show you the final result. Basically, the only next thing that we did is we added the date stamp, the date by joining with the block at the block height, because the timestamp is at the block essentially. And what the query returns, this is the same collection that I was using, is this essentially. Let's give it a nice name. This month, maybe. No, sorry, this day. And as sales in star. So this is the final result of the query that we were doing, and this basically returns. I put a condition here to do October, for instance, just for you guys to see also how date conditions can work. Basically, up until October, this is the total sales per day for this specific collection, right? If we wanted to do another collection, for example, let's say you can do something like this. And from the Stargaze, we say, hey, you know what? Let's grab something else. See if I can get. Let me grab something from the Stargaze punks. Okay, so I can grab that and say, hey, you know what? I want to calculate this on 2 collections, not just one. You can do this. You could also say, hey, you know what? I want to split it by collection. So you can put your condition on the select clause. But this essentially, what this returns is the sales on both of these collections. And you know what? Let's say we want to do this and say, hey, we want to have this split by collection here at the top. Okay, so what we do is just we add the corresponding value that's giving us the collection. So it's this one. I want to make sure that we're also grouping by it here at the top. So let's see what that returns. And we should have, for each day, we should have 2 different rows now, which tells us the sales for each individual. Yeah, so correct. For the 31st of October, for this collection, we had this. For this collection, we had this, and so on and so forth. So what we can do is now here's maybe where before I go into how to export this to Google Sheets and build a small dashboard, I'm going to see if I can answer the first questions here. Okay, so somebody asked at a high level, what are the disadvantages between this method and sending URL queries using the Swagger filtering by event types? Yeah, good question. So the RPCs have a bunch of endpoints that you can leverage for similar stuff like this. At the end of the day, you're limited to some of the queries that you can do and the parameters that you can pass, for example. But at the end of the day, here on the good thing about Numia is that you have absolutely all of the raw data here. So the flexibility is basically unlimited, right? You can do whatever you want. Again, the bar right now is like, hey, you have to know some SQL, right? But you're gonna run into some limitations with RPC nodes, and as well as we expand with more tables, running a small query to get more sophisticated stuff. I'm going to show you a quick example of some of the more analytical stuff that we're doing with other chains that I think can apply also to Stargaze. that's something that you couldn't do with RPCs. Second question, do you recommend Numia for serving a real-time data in apps, or is it more for historical analysis? Yeah, these are amazing questions. So we, right now, what we're showing right now is really most for historical analysis. You can build a dashboard with this. It won't be, running queries, like latency on running queries with BigQuery is a few seconds right now, because it's a data warehouse product, like OLAP properly. But for instance, you can build a backend that like pulls a query once every 10 minutes or once an hour, depending on the real timings that you need, and provide that via an API to a dashboard, right? However, the most important update here is that we are building APIs for all of this, and actually, we're gonna have endpoints with that serve apps, real-time apps, way better than this interface here, right? Lower latency, different use cases. We're gonna even allow developers to write in their own custom endpoints from a query to an endpoint. So so right now with this setup, you could do it, totally doable, but I would recommend to wait. We're Q1 latest, we're gonna launch a set of APIs for all of the chains that we're having indexed here on the left, and more. So that would be more suitable for developers. Okay, and then the third one is feedback from Shane. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay, so this is again, the way this is a query, again, sales for specific collections, and what you can do is Google allows you to export it to a Google Sheets, to a CSV. You can copy it to clipboard if you're have a few rows. But essentially what I did, I copied it to clipboard, and I went here and I went and created this simple, super simple Sheets chart, right? And this is something that, if you want to post something on Twitter, maybe to let the community, this is probably the route to go. This is actually only for about kids, I think, when I was doing it. But this is how it would look like essentially, right? And the data set that we have right now would essentially have two different lines, one for one collection, one for the other. But if you're trying to create data stories, want to post on social media, I think just exporting to Google Sheets, doing it here quickly is the way to go. If you want to have a more interactive dashboard that you share to the community, for example, I would recommend to use the Data Studio part of the G Suite, and I'm going to go into that one next, essentially. Again, this is an example, a very specific Stargaze example, by the way. And we're going to start sharing a few queries here and there, but I invite the community to start looking into the database, understanding how we can improve these queries, how you share them with the community. But the pattern of event type, event attribute key, and event value is really where let's say the core learning is necessary, and that again you get mostly from the Minscan dataset. There's a question also. So your API would allow for HTTP queries sending URL parameters similar to Swagger or more flexible? Yeah, correct. And Swagger, again, like Swagger essentially at the end of the day is just interacting with the public RPC, right? We're gonna allow developers for cleaner endpoints, more flexibility, quicker, et cetera. But yes, the short answer is yes. Right now, again, what I'm showing is like the analytical part, analysis, analytics, understanding user behavior, understanding sales over time. And I think from the Stargaze team's feedback, I think this is also something that the community kind of like needed short term. Absolutely. Okay. So now I'm going to go into a query that essentially is cross-chain. Something that we do for all of the chains. It's a query that would work for all the chain. So it's not necessarily related to specific NFT sales and stuff, but I want to kind of like show you how you could potentially combine these types of queries with any kind of like NFT data, right? And I think this could be interesting for creators. I mean, maybe this specific use case is not super interesting for creators, but I'm gonna try to connect the dots a little bit for everyone. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the retention rates of a product, but essentially a retention rate tells us of the users that we activated on a given month, how many of them are coming back, essentially, right? So we've written this query that essentially works with every single chain. And let's say that we want to measure the retention for Stargaze, the chain, right? So we have this query, we run it, and essentially we get this data set. And by the way, we're going to share this, the dashboard that I'm about to build, we're going to share it publicly to anybody to access it. So again, no need to worry about fully understanding here what's happening, etc. But I do want to make sure that you guys understand what's platform capable of. So we're going to grab this data, and what it does really, it gives us the cohort month is essentially the month that a specific number of users were acquired. If I'm not mistaken, like this is October last year. I think the platform launched like at the very end of October. Started seeing real users only like in January, where it really took off. But we're gonna grab everything just for the sake of it. Gives me the total number of users that got acquired on that month, and then the retention rate for the number of months after. So, for example, 21% of the 157 users that we saw in this one single day in October, I think it was, came back the next month, essentially. But if we go to a data set where we have more significant people, so for instance, the people who came to the platform, Stargaze, for the first time in January, so it was like 25,000, 70% of them came back the next month. And this is even more impressive. The second month, so that would be March, so 2 months after January, almost 80% of them come back. That's actually pretty sick. I hadn't looked at the numbers properly, but this is super high. I mean, that was like the peak of the bull market, I think. But this is kind of like what the data set could tell us. So I'm gonna grab this. I already did actually, and basically I put it here on a spreadsheet. And what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna go to Data Studio. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna create a new dashboard. And we're gonna tell it, hey, you know what? I'm gonna connect to a Google Sheet because that's where I have the data set. So I have the Stargaze webinar data set here. And basically, the worksheet, I have the retention worksheet here, and my data set is specifically between A1 and D. A1 and D. Okay, so Google Data Studio automatically grabbed my data already, so I have that as a source. So, but what I want really is one of these retention charts that we build for chains. So we're gonna add a chart, gonna be a pivot table with heat map, and you'll see the result in a second. And on the left, so here we want the cohort month. Yes, that's what I want. Oh, and this is annoying. I don't know why Google basically takes this as a month and converts it to the actual month. Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I can change this for a second. I don't think. Format. You see the nuances of working with data sometimes here and there. Data formats aren't something that I personally love, but we have to deal with them all the time. So let's see if with the number, I refresh this. I think I might have to reconnect the data sheet. Let's see if this helps. Let's see if I can change the data type. Okay, so sorry. We're gonna try to cast. This is again the annoying part. You don't have to know exactly what I'm doing, but essentially Google's like basically telling me that those numbers are basically months of the calendar year, which are not. So let's see if this, I don't know. Let's see if this works. but I definitely want you guys to see the result here. Okay, so and this is what I want on the columns. Let's see. Okay, now it works. So this is telling me again the number of months later after these specific folks were acquired. And what I want now is the percentage as the metric. This is just like a pivot table, by the way. So if you're familiar with pivot tables and Google Sheets and stuff, you should be able to basically use all of this. So okay, nice. Looks like we got what we wanted. And I'm going to explain in a second what we're seeing here. Okay, neat. So this is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so what do we have here? We basically have here on the left the cohort month. So basically this tells us the users that were acquired on this month had a specific retention rate on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or subsequently months later. So that means, for instance, that the people who came in January, we saw we had a high number of users there. People who came in January, users who came in January, basically 44% of them are still active 9 months later. For the folks who were acquired in May, let's say, oh, this isn't sorted. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this isn't sorted. That's why May is showing up here. Again, you see all the intricacies of building these dashboards, but it's not that hard. So you should be able to build stuff like this very easily. So let me just sort this properly. The columns. I want to sort it. No, I want to sort the rows. Sorting. Okay. Apparently, I'm also not an expert in this, but what I'm trying to do is like sort this, which is not allowing me to for some reason. But you get the idea. May should actually be down here. Sorry, March should be up here, April here, and May here. For some reason, I'm not able to sort it. But the idea is that here with this chart, you can see the retention rate of the platform. And let me tell you, like, this is pretty good, actually. I'm not more bullish because like we've done this for a bunch of platforms, and Stargaze has one of the highest, but not I'm seeing the numbers. But this is, again, let me try to connect back the dots a little bit. And look at even this, like people who were acquired in April, 73 and 72% are coming back essentially 3-4 months later. So that's actually not bad. And the way I'm trying to connect this is like, this is kind of like a more user engagement dashboard that we're building with all of the chains, more of like a, hey, how is your product, how is your chain performing? But stuff like that you can also do for collections, right? Like imagine like at what frequency are users buying your collection specifically, right? Or from the users who acquired in a given month, how many of them have kept it? So you can do a lot of these combinations between like retention, engagement, user activity, and any of the NFT data. And again, I think somebody was asking of like the comparison between RPCs and something like ours, Numia. This is exactly the kind of stuff that you wouldn't be able to do with RPCs, right? Again, and I know, I mean, we don't have much time, and there are a bunch of intricacies here with the data, but this stuff is really easy to build. And if you come from analytics or have done a lot of Excel in your life, Numia at the end of the day shouldn't be hard to use, really. Or building dashboards with our data shouldn't be hard to use. And again, I'm gonna keep repeating myself, but I think one of the most important things is that we collaborate as an ecosystem to help each other share queries, share dashboards, like this that we're gonna share. We're gonna basically just make sure that it's tweaked and it works properly, and then we're gonna share it publicly on a tweet so you guys can have access to it. So I'm gonna go to questions, and I wanted to give 10 minutes to people for questions. We've been answering them, so if there are not any more questions after this one, I might take other 5 minutes to run an IPC query to show you folks how you can also potentially run data and run queries against other data sets outside of Stargaze. So somebody asked, when push notifications to certain events? Yeah, honestly, like webhooks and stuff like this is in our roadmap. We aren't sure weren't sure if well, I am of the opinion that we need an notifications ecosystem in Cosmos actually. And honestly, Numia has been thinking about it, but that's maybe a broader story than your question. I'm sorry, I get carried away all the time. We'll implement webhooks soon. Webhooks essentially allows you to, or any developer, to subscribe to an event that happens on chain. We right now, we're more focused on the database that powers these use cases. So eventually anybody will have to build it, but after we have it, it should be again really easy for somebody to build a small app where they allow users to subscribe to specific events on Stargaze, like a sale or etc. And the user gets notifications, right? The next question is, can we connect Looker Studio to the GCP query SQL? Yes, absolutely. Basically, the way you do it is here on Add Data, you select BigQuery, you select the project that your GCP project, and here on Custom Queries, you select your GCP project, and here you just insert the query that you wrote here. Good question, actually. So I could literally just do this, and I will have exactly the same data set that I have there. So this will refresh the data automatically. Absolutely, that's a good call. So the next question is, how does this compare to Metabase? Honestly, I am not familiar with Metabase. Apologies. But I can definitely look into it and form an opinion on it. So yeah, apologies for that, but I'll look into it. Next question is, are the costs associated with connecting to SQL statement within the GCP query? Sorry, are the costs associated with connecting to the SQL statement within GCP BigQuery versus a snapshot extract in Google Sheets? Yeah, super good question. If you add your query here, you can set up this. You can set up the data freshness for Google. There's an option where you can basically configure the dataset to update every 12 hours, once a day, or something like that, so that your query doesn't grow every time you load the report, for example. That's more cost efficient. If you statically export something to Google Sheets, you're not going to have any cost essentially at the end of the day, right? When you're running your dashboard from here, obviously this dataset won't be updated, but if you're doing again stuff like more snapshots of stuff that you want to share with the community, I suggest you do snapshots and then build your dashboards on top. If you want to have a real-time dashboard for more advanced use cases, you're going to have to connect your query, set up the configuration for the data freshness to be maybe, depends on your use case. But that will incur a little bit more cost. Again, it's not much really. And little hack that, it's obvious for everyone. You can always create a new console, a new account with Google and get another $300 in credit. That's what I do 18 times or something once back in the day when I was a data scientist. Yes, somebody asked, in the cohort query using transfers only or any on-chain activity? Absolutely. This is a great question. So this cohort analysis is using specifically I can show you the query very briefly. It's basically taking sender of any type, and in Cosmos, sender mostly is a message sender, somebody who signed a transaction. But here we could build a condition that's only for something like buying an NFT, for example. So in that case, we would get a very different chart, and we would get the retention of people who, when they buy their first NFT, how often they're buying the subsequent months, for example. Super great questions. Actually, these cohort analysis they kind of different approaches. One of them is the overall activity in the platform, which is this one. But the other one is you're asking, Jorge, which is looking at the retention based on specific events. You can absolutely do that. And we can actually, this is very interesting. Let me think about if we have time to, before we share this dashboard publicly, to add something like a drop down that allows you to select the activity that you're looking the retention into. So somebody asked when we were able to access the data in GCP. Actually, it's already live. So you can go ahead and create your GCP account, go into Add Data, start a project by name, and here input what I was mentioned at the beginning of the call. If you were in there, you'll see it in the recording. But it's just basically our domain, which is this immaculate 347 something, which is just like our BigQuery domain, and then the name of the dataset, which is Stargaze 1. And by then you'll have it pinned here. You don't need to pin it to query actually, because it's public. But if you pin it here, you'll be able to explore it, which make it easier, to navigate the different things, right? So yeah, the short answer is right now, maybe the only thing, if you access it in the next 48 hours, just be aware that there might be some data missing on November, but by the end of the weekend, we'll have basically all of the data running smoothly. And maybe I said at the beginning of the call that I was going to put myself on the spot. We're actually already indexing blocks real time. So let me see if this is the case really. So I'm going to check the last block. Sorry, blocks. And let's see, putting Numia on the spot here. Thank you very much. Sometimes I feel I'm a little bit hard time reading on computers. Okay, so it's 1854 UTC, and it's almost real time. Let's see if it updated. Yeah, we're like I don't know, 20 seconds behind or something right now. See? Yeah, I would say 20 seconds maybe at most. Pretty decent, I think, especially for this type of use case. For the API, I wonder how long, I don't know, honestly, and pardon my ignorance, I don't know the block times for Stargaze, like how much does it take each one? But the last one was 5 seconds. This one's like, it looks like it's 30 seconds. So yeah, no, it's actually more real time than I thought. Nice. Very nice. Okay, I'm impressed. I didn't know that. This is great. So there's one more query that I wanted to run. It looks like there are no more questions right now. So I think I'm just gonna do it quickly. I have it prepared somewhere here. Let me see, where is it? I don't think a bunch of stuff here. So IBC users active, where is it? IBC active users. Okay. So this looks complex, but the only reason why it looks complex is because we are adding up all the chains that we have indexed right now. So what we're doing is really just getting active users that have basically done an IBC transfer. This is how you do it. Essentially, we're telling the Cosmos SDK data, hey, give me all the users who sign a transaction of type this or this. This is, this is important. Actually, you're seeing that signing an IBC transfer is not only this message here, but also this. The SDK sometimes back in the day, like, I don't know, for different chains, depending on what versions they had, we're tagging an IBC message like this, and some of them were tagging it like this. So you're gonna run into some Cosmos weirdness in some cases where you kind of like, need to understand upgrades and making sure the data is still correct. But it's part of the game, I think. And just be aware of that. And again, like, Minscan is your friend for this. Happy to answer any other questions on that. I think we definitely want to do another webinar once we have more tables, when we have more use cases, and when we see people build something with Numia. But just for the sake of being here, where you're looking at basically right now it's not sorted, by the way. It is sorted by the network, actually. So this is, I'm sorry, I forgot the column names, but this is number of active users. Remember, this is IBC users, the month and the network, basically, right? And then if I export this, I'm gonna copy it to clipboard. Got another one here. users. We're going to be month network. And I think I need to build a pivot table first. Otherwise, the chart's not gonna insert pivot table rule changes everything all the time. Kind of annoying. I'm gonna put it here. Suck. Okay, put it somewhere else. Great. Okay, so on the rows, we want. Wait a minute, I don't know what it did. Yeah, we're out of time, but and I think you guys get what I'm trying to do. But essentially, I was just trying to build a quick chart and aggregating all of the IBC active users by network. I think we gave this data to Cyborg. If you know him, he's kind of like a little bit of an influencer in Cosmos. We gave this data to him like a few days ago, and he posted it on Twitter. Should be able to see it there. But here are the Stargaze IBC active users essentially. So pretty neat. Correlates super highly with active users in general, essentially. And again, you don't need to run these queries for all the networks. We were just trying to show here how you could potentially combine a query within Stargaze and then do a join or something with, or union all or something, combine it with a query on Osmosis, run separate, run both separately. So you can do a lot again. Just a reminder, we have a cache, the hub, Evmos, Osmosis, Stargaze, and Stride right now. And by Q1, we should have basically full chain coverage. So there's one more last question. Will there be a place where we can see all event types, including custom modules that we can be used for queries available for each chain? So I recommend what you can do very briefly is, we're working on our docs, and the problem with the docs is for each chain, we need different docs and they change all the time, these events. And we're going to have something like that. We need to find a way to do it scalably. But what you can do is we have this query. Sorry, putting the chat in front of me. We have this query. Let me see here. Where basically you can just do a count all for event attributes and attribute keys. I can actually, I can just share it here because this is a fundamental one. And by the way, you're gonna, it's all in our docs, but you're gonna have to put this domain before your queries. So let me share this again. This is the right one. Because you're not within our organization, right? So you need to specifically where you're querying from. But if you run this, you'll get this query down here, where kind of like you get all the distribution and the counts for different event types and the corresponding attribute keys. And as you can see, Stargaze has 322 combinations. It's pretty high. I think Osmosis has something like 106 or something, if I'm not mistaken. But most of them, as you can see, most of the data for the NFT stuff will be in the WASM activity. WASM set ask. As you can see, collection price expires. We have WASM, the minter, mint price, network fee. The event type that I was using. I think it's in the next page. WASM remove ask. So yeah, this is the best way to explore the query that I just shared. I think that's the easier answer, the way to answer your question. But again, eventually we'll have this in our docs, but this will get you very far. But you're right. That's a great question because until you can start understanding the data set, understanding all these different event types and attribute keys is when you can start getting value out of it. But it's just there's a small of a learning curve. I accept that, and I hope it's not too steep for most of you folks. But yeah, this is great. The Stargaze team can help us share these. We could put them on our docs as well. Absolutely. So yeah, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I think we are at the hour, a little bit over it, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for everybody for being. Stop sharing now. your time, for hearing me out on my rant of a full hour. And again, any feedback from your end, please, comment, like DM us on Twitter. We'll be punching above a bunch of product updates in the next few weeks, but this is just a start. And building more tables, more usable, an API for your community, and a bunch of other stuff it's in our roadmap. So really excited to work with the Stargaze team and the community. And I'm gonna make sure that I share this recording with the team. And again, anything else, we're here for you. And I have to go now because I'm late for another call. But again, thank you all, and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, Rafa.
Yeah. Thanks, Darius. Thanks everybody from the team. Take care.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.